Joining me now, Congressman David Reichert. He is the head of the House Law Enforcement Caucus. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. I know it's a very hectic and challenging time for you, your committee. How do you see things changing as we move ahead?
Well, I'm also a career law enforcement officer. I spent 33 years in the King County Sheriff's Office in Seattle before I came to Congress. SWAT commander, hostage negotiator. So, you know, after Columbine, we saw tactics change to active shooter, right? So I was also in the middle of WTO riots in 1999 as the sheriff. And what we've seen after WTO is tactics begin to change as police officers have determined that, you know, one of the ways to control a crowd is to divide and conquer. So we've seen that happen over the last few years. I think that the important point to make here today, though, is what's causing these flare-ups and these riots and protests in the first place, and that's where we need to direct our attention.
So, in your mind, what's causing them? A lot of times they feel spontaneous, but with the advent of social media and all these different organizations, I'm sure there's some planning as well.
Well, I think that's one of the problems, is that we live in this high-tech age and communication is so easily disseminated to thousands of people in an instant that you can gather up large groups immediately, and all of a sudden the police are confronted with a large angry crowd. Part of the problem here is that, well, I think the main issue is there is no longer trust that exists between the police and community. Now, in some smaller communities, you might find that trust, but as we go across the country and watch these protests, that trust has begun to deteriorate and almost disappear in most communities. But we've got to work to bring that trust back. The police cannot protect their community alone. The community can't do it alone. It's got to be a partnership.
How do you get over the so-called Ferguson effect? How has that harmed the work of police officers and the communities themselves?
Well, I think there's a lot of steps that we can take, and we're going to be working on that and have been working on that for the last year and a half or so. And we've got to speed this process up. But what's happened is I think that as a result of Ferguson, there are less and less people interested in a police profession. There are less and less applications, so that means less qualified people applying for the job. And I also think there's some issue with police departments maybe not having the high standards in place and the very intense screening processes that you might go through, for example, emotional or psychological tests that may indicate this person's not fit to carry a gun and a badge. So I think that's one of the problems. The other issue is here that cops are out there every day. And I know I did this. I've been stabbed, I've been shot at, but you go back to work, you're there to protect your community. People know and understand that in their gut, but we've got to get people back together and see how police really do their job. Get them into police academies.
Right.
Get community policing back. You know, 100% operational across this nation. Community has to be involved and re-engaged with their police departments.
Congressman, it's a lot of work. I appreciate someone with your resume being involved in this at the highest level, and I'm hopeful. And I think the rest of the country is to a degree as well. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.